Labs core dev team first AMA. It's the first time that we're getting everybody online at the same time and open to answer any questions from the community. We're getting our questions live from the text channel on the Discord server. Speaking here is Dean Pappas. I'm the marketing director based out of San Francisco at ETC Labs. We also have Stev on the line. Stev, you want to introduce yourself real fast?
Yeah, I'm the technology coordinator at TC Labs Core, and yeah, it's great to have this event. Ask us anything for sure, and hope to have more of these in the future sometime.
Excellent. I also see we've got Zach Alfred just joined. Hey, Zach.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Thanks for doing this. Good idea. Are we recording it?
Yeah, it's recorded.
Cool.
Yeah, there were a lot of people who mentioned that they might not be able to get on the process. We're going to be, trying this one out, which it's good that we get to talk, have a conversation at the same time. We can let people chat with us. Maybe next time we'll also include some sort of YouTube stream. But yeah, if there's any ideas or critiques on the format, please don't hesitate to put it in the AMA channel. We've written all of our questions down separately, so we won't get in the way of our chat. So as far as the format, we're going to be following for the conversation over the next hour. We've already gathered questions from our text channel, but we've also received some through Reddit, from Bitcoin Talk, from Telegram, all over the place. So we've assembled all the questions. What we're going to try to do is really make the bulk of this a technical discussion. So we're going to go over some of the roadmap, anything that has to do with the actual platform development, and then some of our more philosophical governance, eSIP, GitHub related questions we're going to put towards the back half of the conversation. That way we can make sure everything gets addressed within the next hour. So it looks like we've also got a few more of the dev team joining us now. I see Zach Middleton's on as well. I see Shane's with us also. So I think this might be a good opportunity for us to start.
Sounds good.
Excellent. So the first question comes from Fyro. I also want to thank Fyro for supplying us with the most questions. You guys, if you don't know, Fyro's fairly active in the community. We're very happy to get some questions. So the first one is, I see some people on Discord labeled as dev that were not presented as far as I know. Has the team grown? How big is the development team? So, that question's asking, directly to ETC Labs Core. How many are you? What's going on? How has this grown so fast?
Yeah, I think we picked up Alan recently as our newest one. Before that, it was Zach Mitten was the other joint. So yeah, other than that, no new people yet, but.
I'm Zach. I came from Consensus, and Dean actually, I did a video with him, so if you want to know about me, you can look at that.
Yeah, and definitely we're looking to grow and onboard new people too. Definitely, we're definitely not gonna. Our size definitely will be changing.
So to directly answer that question, how big is the team? How many people?
Like actually, like devs, I think we're at 9 now.
Yeah.
We have some part timers, right? So it's hard to count them all.
Yeah, and for people listening in, you might have realized we're not all located in the same place.
Yeah, I think the official count is 10 at the moment.
For full time, I think, right?
Okay, so we'll move on from that one from Philo. We're going to move to this next question from Snag 55. It's going to move a bit more into the roadmap and tech discussion. As long as ETC is going to stick with proof of work, what is important for miners? What steps are important for miners that we could see on the roadmap?
I think as far as when it comes to like upgrades, obviously getting consensus requires miners and node operators, so that's something that's important, especially for ETC moving at a we're moving at a slower pace, but we're also growing more. So I think as far as improvements and updates, that's going to also come faster than it used to. So definitely miners being on board with development is really important.
Yeah, if I can chime in there, we also have like some tools around like the whole like ether log stuff is pretty good. Especially if you're a miner, then you might be interested in some of the data that you can get out of it there, as it's kind of cataloging all of the events and making them searchable through Elasticsearch, which is pretty useful.
Yeah, not just the data though, but like graphing and visualizing it in the Kibana dashboard. That's super useful for mining. Like if you're managing like 1,000 nodes and you want somewhere to pull all the logs from them, that's a good place to start.
Yeah, and we've been like kind of spitballing the idea around of building some tools to make it so that, well, actually that's not really for miners, so we'll leave that part for later. But yeah, I guess also important steps would probably be the fact that we're in dire need of some new opcodes, specifically Byzantium ones, and therefore we're organizing for a client upgrade. That's going to be in the horizon, I would assume. So, just keeping an eye out for that, and voicing your opinions very loudly is usually best, because that way there's a good gauge of who is in and who is not. And yeah, maybe looking at some other alternative methods of signaling support.
Now, it looks like the question set is very focused on 51% attack susceptibility and what are the steps around making that more difficult. Next question is, what's your take on ASICs in ETC network? And then the follow-up question after that is, what's your take on various solutions for protecting the network? 51% attacks, such as Pearl guards, or can be delegated proof of work. So I think let's pivot the conversation towards the 51% the defense roadmap. What are we thinking there as far as the steps we're going to take this year?
Yeah, so I think first thing is that I don't see like a solution right now on the horizon that's going to solve 51% attacks. Right? There's trade-offs in every single solution there. So, like removing the fact that the network can be susceptible to 51% attack using hives. That's super great solution, because like the whole problem is having new nodes join the network, and if you're not choosing the wrong work, then you're choosing something else, and what that something else is, I'm not convinced that they've been proof of work.
And also,
So
oh,
this could maybe tie into the ASICs thing, because I think there was some interest, because it sounds like there's ASICs coming, from my understanding, but there was like, there was talk about like going to Prague Power or something like that, and as far as I know, it doesn't sound like people are too interested in that. So I'll just give, this is just one person's opinion, but I think actually if we just let ASICs happen, it actually could protect a little bit against 51% attacks. And the reason why is, if you notice the way that 51% attack happened, there was, since you can use GPUs to mine right now, it's very easy to ramp up the amount of work or ramp down the amount of work. Once everything's dominated by ASICs, it's going to be really hard for one person to take over 51% of that power, and it won't be able to really happen suddenly like that. So that's one good thing. And then we'll also have a more consistent hash power in general, because miners that are using ASIC, they just constantly will have it turned on. So we can use some like heuristics on the rate of hashes coming in to see if the network's healthy. So I'm interested in building some tools like that.
So those all fall into sort of the category of like sort of mitigation of a particular type of 51% attack. But in theory, you could be doing this completely offline and then basically dump a whole bunch of blocks onto the network in one swoop. So you can't really, you can't fully rely on systems like that to prevent it from ever happening in the future. That's what I'm getting at.
I don't think you can ever prevent it from happening, but my point is that, like, if everyone's using ASICs, they're bound to most likely be completely turned on most of the time. So you won't be able to like go on Nice Hash and just like buy an extra 100% of what's being mined, because it just won't exist in hardware. Like it's just capped out at a certain rate.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, so we can build tools that actually monitor that too, and kind of tell users the health of the network, I think.
I like to think about the ASIC solution, kind of like what like the Satoshi paper said about there's always going to be malicious actors. You can't like prevent them absolutely, but just like robbers, you can't really stop robberies. But if you could identify robbers, that's one step closer to justice. And if you can identify miners and stuff through monitoring and analytic solutions, then that's one step into identifying who this malicious actor is. And you think about 51% attacks are pretty expensive to do, and they don't destroy networks and not a crisis. And really all you can really do is double spend on an exchange, but an exchange doesn't want to nurture a double spender because they're going to lose money. And then if people could track the value in this public chain to that exchange, they don't want the market to ostracize their exchange where they're the 51% is not really too much of a crisis. I think ETC co-op's also looking into like defensive mining. We're kind of doing monitoring and analytics stuff, and I think those are early steps to in response to the 51% attack. And as far as ASICs, like Zach had a good point. They're going to run their things absolutely, and kind of like what the Prague Power people said in one of their meetings with the ETC community is, GPU manufacturers don't care about our coin, but ASICs do, and ASICs invest elsewhere. And if they have ETC ASICs, they're going to want to ensure that ETC is successful through other means than just mining. Because if you're an ASIC manufacturer, you're investing all this capital, or I like to say they're the biggest stakers. They might want to throw funds into other ETC initiatives for other people's projects and stuff, because they want the network to see, they want adoption to happen, and it makes everyone's happy at the end of the day.
There's obviously a lot of thought and focus going into this, but as everybody can tell, it's not. There's not a silver bullet, and it doesn't sound like the team has come to a definitive conclusion on what our stance is on how to address it. Building new tools, making it easier for miners to identify these things ahead of time is where we're at today. I want to switch gears now to a question that Omni Edge had asked. What's ETC Labs' view and plans on accessibility of running full nodes? And the follow-up question is, I think currently full nodes are able to blacklist accounts. Could you confirm if this is correct? Full nodes be able to blacklist accounts? If yes, could you explain the reasoning of what it solves?
Okay, well, we'll take a bit of this one. First thing is, yeah, we definitely want full nodes to be more accessible. That's definitely some of the stuff that we're working on now. And then for like blacklisting stuff, like, I mean, if you can't do it in Geth and set up a proxy that just looks at the requests and cancels it or whatever, right? Like, there's, I think blacklisting, we're talking about RPC blacklisting, which Cody was talking about like a month ago. I'm like, I don't know, like, you can blacklist everyone if you turn off your RPC. So, I mean, you can selectively, definitely select what RPC calls that you want to take or whatever, but I don't think that's exactly something that people should be doing. On the other hand, we can talk about real blacklisting, like exchanges blacklist stuff all the time. So, I don't want to get into that too much, but like, no one's going to allow the DAO account to transfer any money through their exchange. Right?
Yeah, and doesn't exchange really want a double spending account to be interacting with their exchange? Probably not.
As far as blacklisting from a full node, though, I don't think that would really do much, would it? You would just stop following the chain, because if the chain ended up moving those funds, then your node would consider it invalid, and your node would just be like on its own.
Yeah, let's say you were in like Ethereum and you decided not to take anything from my address, like deploy address, right? Like if you're in Fura, we're talking about not specifically full nodes, but like in Fura taking RPC requests, right?
Oh yeah, then
sure.
I think the question was full node, wasn't it?
Yeah, but like what he's getting at is what Cody was talking about a month ago, where he was saying that he could blacklist accounts, but he was only talking about RPC. Right? Like you can run an RPC on a full node. Right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you're supplying service through your full node to someone else, then you could cut them off from the network, basically.
Well, here's the thing, is that if you're using something like Infura and everyone relies on you, sure, but like if you're actually running a full node and you send a transaction, nobody can say that it's not, right? Like, it's a totally different thing talking about like RPC versus what a full node's like. Right? Yeah, and like Anthony brings up a good point. Instead of trying to do that on your actual full node, you're doing way more work than what you should be doing anyways.
Yeah. So you're essentially creating a soft fork. So you would need 51% miners to also blacklist this account to really get in there.
Yeah, on like a full node is what we're doing, right? Because like the idea is that you're gonna send it. It doesn't matter where you send it, as long as it gets to the network. Mm-hmm. And people are blocking your RPC, and send it somewhere else.
Okay, let's there's a group of questions Saya and I posted kind of wanted to touch on understanding the ETC Lab's priorities, projects, the roadmap, even Classic Kevin's question wraps into it, which is how does ETC plan to keep ETC competitive? So let's spend the next 10 minutes talking about what the existing roadmap is, what the priorities for ETC Labs core is, and how ETC Labs plans to keep ETC competitive.
Okay, just around like priorities. Like our priorities are like immutability, decentralization, and backward compatibility. I think those are the things we base a lot of our decisions on.
And in the context of collaboration with Ethereum 2.0, do you see any possible negative effects from such a collaboration?
I can get that one. So as far as collaboration with F2.0 folks, I mean, we had the call with them. IOHK, TC Co-op, we all, there's a pretty big variation of who was participating. And, they're participating F2.0. And, currently, like some of our forks, they actually borrow from EIPs. So I think having an open mind, and you can have an open mind, collaborate, and share ideas. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's how open source collaboration works. So I don't think there's only net positives to that. There's no net negatives. And, I think the F2.0 people, especially in the call too, they respected oh, you guys are proof of work Ethereum, that's cool. We want to show you this. And hey, if there's some good ideas there, or we have some good ideas to contribute to F2.0, then there's no reason to grow together with our respective forks and our respective visions.
Kevin had a response to that slide.
So, like, if Ethereum 2.0 is on layer 2, and you're going to put your ETC in the layer 2, that's your problem. Like, the same thing can happen anywhere. Like, the Polkadot one got 300 million. Yeah, it happens.
Okay, moving on now to a question that Philo had asked. Supposedly Byzantium and Constantinople upgrade can break the immutability of existing smart contracts. What do you guys think of this? My personal opinion is that we should not allow the existing smart contracts if we have to be serious about immutability. Have you considered having versions, as this seems to be the only case we can guarantee that programs can be built for the future?
I don't think anyone is opposed to it, other than the only opposition to it would be the technical overhead that is added. It's like if you're having to keep around old versions of the VM and then switch to the newer VM version when you get to that block, it adds a whole lot of just overhead to clients, right? I feel like it would be a hard thing to convince all of the developers of all the clients to do. While it's very well intentioned, and then there's a whole host of arguments around I suppose you can summarize them as the definition. Like, what is the definition of immutability to you? And that's because yes. So like adding new opcodes. The problem is basically that the opcodes were previously undefined and now they are defined. And so if somebody had used them in their undefined state, now they are doing something that is defined. And then however you take it, like maybe you see it as that being a change of state and therefore not immutable, or not, right? And you see it as like undefined in both cases, so whatever. Yeah, so I don't know. Like,
Hey, could I jump in? This is Michael. I'm one of the compiler guys. I'm working on the JIT. To me, if you used an opcode in the previous version and it was undefined, that's on you. I mean, that's like you having an x86 processor and they say these opcodes are undefined and you decided to use them somehow, and then you get a new version of a chip and they now define the opcode and you're mad that they define the opcode. They can't depend on that. So to me, defining new opcodes is the right of Ethereum and ETC. And if you use an undefined opcode, in my opinion, that's on you. I don't think that we can try and preserve quote unquote backward compatibility, because imagine this scenario. What if you have two different developers that use undefined opcodes in completely different ways? How do we preserve backward compatibility? So I personally don't think that we should push for preserving behavior for undefined opcodes.
I agree with you, Mike. I think saying that opcodes that were completely unused, adding new opcodes is saying that is screwing up the immutability, taking it a little too far. Now, if this was the idea of changing existing opcodes, now that's a totally different story. Then I see the argument.
Yes, absolutely. You can't change existing opcodes. Absolutely.
So I think, there's still some debate on the versioning stuff. The way it puts some EIPs out there, ECIPs.
Yeah, I think Way has a good EIP up for not allowing the VM to like ignore opcodes that it doesn't know about. So that might be an interesting EIP to adopt.
I mean, yeah, maybe the implementation is not as bad as I'm imagining it to be. Because, like, if you were, say, only interested in the last couple thousand blocks, then it's not like you're gonna have to keep around this VM unless you want to run a full node. But yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting idea. Like it would definitely allow for more opportunities to make changes in the future, right? With less, I guess, worry and upgrades to things as well. So I don't know. I think it's probably something worth exploring, but I don't know if it is a necessary gatekeeper to upgrades like Byzantium. Like I think the need for newer Solidity versions outweighs the drawbacks of this desire for versioning. Like if we had it all together and it was like a ready to go pull request, then maybe we would look at it differently. But I don't know.
I see a question here. This is Michael about how would you filter and enforce the use of undefined opcodes. So in the VM, if obviously it still comes down to you need to understand what version you're running on. But if you're in the VM, let's say you're supporting Byzantium opcodes, then anything that's not defined in Byzantium, then you would simply error out, whatever that actually means. So whatever version of the VM that you're using, if it's Byzantium or Constantinople, whatever undefined opcodes are for those versions, you simply would no longer execute. But I still want to know, how did someone generate an EVM program using undefined opcodes? Because in theory, you shouldn't be able to do that using Solidity.
Well, you just use a different version of Solidity.
But again, Solidity itself would never generate an undefined opcode.
Well, like take right now, I go with the current version of Solidity, and then I go deploy it on our network. And blam, look, I got a bunch of random fucking opcodes.
Yeah, but the only way that could happen would be if you're saying, hey, Solidity generate Byzantium opcodes, but we know we don't support Byzantium, but that's not the same thing.
What do you mean? Like, if you go try to use Truffle today and deploy it on ETC, like, what's telling you that you can't do that?
I'm not saying it's anything
it
that's
goes
telling you.
back to the age-old adage of software. Is like, if you build it in a way such that it's possible, people will do it. Like,
No, I get that.
So, like, you can guarantee that somebody built a smart contract using the wrong version of Solidity that included an opcode, like, at the end of their program, and it blows up only when you upgrade. And it just so happens that they didn't notice, and it worked as they thought. They thought it works, and then now all of a sudden it doesn't work anymore. But
again, my question is let's do a concrete example. Are you saying that they built for Byzantium? We don't yet support Byzantium, and they try and deploy it on ETC? Is that
No. The example is like, oops, I used the wrong Solidity version, but my code that I happen to write just happens to still work because the opcode wasn't inserted, like one of the opcodes that's not supported yet wasn't inserted into the code in a position where it mattered too much. Right? And then now that you've upgraded, it does matter, so that code no longer works. And the point here is that this is all made up examples because we can actually just go look on chain and see, who's using these opcodes, So like, that's another part of it. Is like, well, maybe it would be good as a part of this proposal to have put some kind of numbers to it, like, hey, these contracts would be broken, and like, it's fine if there's a few, but like, if there's a few that have a large number of transactions to them and they're fairly active, then okay, that might be a bit of a problem. But if nobody is using the one, like, then I mean, it's hard to say that, like, I don't know, like, yeah, it comes back to the question of immutability, right? It's like, is it immutable to ignore those?
But this isn't immutability. This is compatibility. I think we ought to stop saying immutability. This is all about, at what point do your opcodes no longer work? And I'll be honest with you, I still don't understand the point to which you generated, these invalid opcodes. So, I mean, I get at some point we're going to do with hard force, right? But again, I'm trying to understand why when you move forward, if these opcodes are now defined, things won't work.
I'd be surprised if anyone's using it, to be honest, but it's maybe worth looking at.
New opcodes is like 5G. You might get a 5G capable device, but you'll probably not be using 5G for another year or two.
Right.
Okay, do you guys want to move into conversation around Christine and Jade, or do you want to talk about ETH and Peace Bridge?
Peace Bridge is a ETC. That ETC co-op would know the best answer for those questions.
Yeah, so that was one of the questions I finalized, but you're right. ETC co-op is covered for Peace Bridge conversation. Do you want to talk a bit more about Christine, what Jade is, what people can expect when that would be out?
Yeah, I'll talk about Christine because Jade is still in the works. talk much about that. But Christine is a repo that's on EPC Labs core, and what it is mostly our philosophy around an open source project. So the idea around it is that it has it's mostly documentation, and it's mostly setting up the guideline in which we want to build all of our projects. So if you read through it, the idea is that we want a lot of our approach software development in the open source world is documentation driven. So the idea is that you get your problem that you're trying to solve written down in the repository before you even start your software development problem. So the idea there is, you got documentation driven development, and then there's lots of documents around it on how to contribute and how to build new projects and build existing projects, and basically everything you need to know to be able to interact with any of the repositories that you want to build going forward. So Steph made the link there, and we made it pretty easy to not only fork, but there's instructions on there on how to bring it into your own project. And like, if you look at the repo, it's like number 2, where it says follow these instructions, and that lets you actually merge existing histories together, like unrelated. So if you're looking for some crazy good magic, check that out. So the interesting parts there are like the building and releasing markdown files and reading. Those are like the big chunks there on the specs we've written. So the building goes over like, here you want a build directory, and here's how you build a target, and then you can basically take this and go to town. Build lots of great open source projects on top of this.
Awesome. Looks like a lot of people had didn't know that was being built, so I'm glad we discussed it. And then we've also shared the links to this in the AMA text channel.
Great.
I'm trying to find some of the newer Chroma typed in. One second.
Does anyone here that can answer the Peace Bridge stuff? Because I'd actually like to know about it. I did some relay stuff. I had consensus, but there was problems with the efficiency of proof of work. But there's been some pretty big improvements in that with this new Fly client thing. I'm pretty interested in using something like that. As far as I know, that was just a proof of concept. I don't think it's a running DApp.
Was that the NipplePals stuff? Interactive proof of work.
That was a specific other version of, but this still would fall under that heading. It is a non-interactive proof of work. But I think that used with a specific like construction, that term. But yeah, Fly client, that's the one I'm talking about. And MMR, it uses a Merkle mountain range, which is really a really cool data structure that like seems to solve a lot of things. I've been drawing it all over my apartment for the last 2 days, just geeking out.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't looked too deeply into it. I remember reading this quite a long time ago, but I didn't see too much about it. Does anyone know who did this? Akomba?
The Peace Bridge stuff, or are you talking about the flight stuff that
Oh, Peace Bridge.
There was Lloyd Liu had written a paper, or he made like a blog post on it, and there was just a hackathon like a year and a half ago where Nate Rush and someone else, I think they won the hackathon or maybe second place or something. They had a concept of it that, and I know this because they used like a library. They used that F-proof library that I built, but I don't think it was taken further than just a hackathon.
Okay. So we've covered that as well. At this point, I think we're good to kind of go over some of the ESIP discussion. I think there's been a lot of conversation recently also between Zach Belford and Donald around this concept of a star IP. So there are a lot of questions that came in the beginning. One came from Done Did It. Dev Team A has their own software repository and upgrade approval process. Dev Team B has their own. Can Dev Team A push an upgrade onto the network that is only partially accepted? Another question later by Spyro. What is the exact routine behind Eclipse idea? Also, how do you see clients converge together for a hard fork? Later, Donald asked, would ETC Labs core agree to unify these to an ESIP root hash plus DNS, even if ESIP? A lot of questions around the ESIP Eclipse discussion.
Do we want to take them one at a time here, or because there's a lot of stuff there?
Yeah, what I want to do is kind of not spend too much time around each question, because I feel that after you've answered one, you've kind of answered them all.
I think, out of fairness, I think in the spirit of AMA, I think we should address each one individually. No, like, isn't that the whole purpose of an AMA? Is that everybody gets to ask anything and you enumerate each one?
100%. I feel that there's some overlap, but yes, let's
That's fine.
address it as a philosophy, and then if there's something that falls through the cracks, we'll grab it. But Zach, I think you're probably the best guy to tackle this group of questions.
Oh, jeez. Okay. So let me find where we're starting from here.
I think
So
I think that
I a good one is Pyro's question. What is the exact reason behind the idea, and how do you see clients converge together during a hard fork?
Sorry, what was the exact reason? And then you kind of cut out there.
Yeah, so there's three questions. What is the exact reason behind Eclipse as an idea? We can start with that.
I'm not actually even too sure who initially forked it.
I pushed it.
But yeah, as far as as far as I've interpreted it, anyways, is more or less just like basically just decentralizing the ECIP process in a way. Basically allows everybody to contribute on their own terms and signal support for proposals in their own ways as well. And I guess what it comes down to is we keep coming back to this idea that in order to be truly decentralized, and in order for the network to be sufficiently decentralized, there needs to be more than one client, right? We can all agree that if there was only one client, then there would be only one group of people that you would have to lobby to or whatever to have a proposal or some piece of, some change go through, right? And voila, when the node's up, I guess that would be the only rebuttal would be for people to just not upgrade.
Becca chime in as well.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, Eclipse, EIPs, eSIPs. So in like a truly decentralized system, I mean, everyone should be able to follow their own proposals and processes, and really the organization of where that's coming from should be improvement proposals should be agnostic to how the community is organized or how groups within the community are organized. It's the code that matters, and where you grab that from, it doesn't matter. Repos, GitHub's owned by Microsoft. I mean, and repos, they just hold specifications. They're not directly affecting the client, or because and you can have accepted specs, but they don't have to be adopted. It's up to people to implement them and so on. And as far as and I think what's cool about and when we had Eclipse, it was prematurely discovered because we just like pushed it and it was public, and we wanted to take it to the community, but instead it was kind of people saw it and they're like threatened by it. Well, what's cool is that it's sparking. What's cool, it's sparking more discussion in the ecosystem about, okay, how could we be inclusive of independent contributors that, because the conforming everyone to one repo or org. I mean, people want to push code wherever they want, and when you think about scale, as far as scale, it's good to have something that is inclusive of all these other of everyone else's processes, and because unless you have a gun to someone's head, you can't be forcing people to push code here or there. But so right,
Well,
so I think
if somebody comes around, if I may just jump in, it's like, what if, like this stuff is supposed to be resistant to censorship and to individual powers. So like, what if somebody came around and deleted the entire repository? Like, just delete the repository. Who has a fork of it that's up to date or that's maintained? Like, that would the effects of that could be, could take months to repair if at all. So like, just like get ahead of it by making these things sort of I guess like ephemeral, like the lifetime of a eSIP repo like can be a fluctuating thing, and people should look to the groups and the people that they trust and follow, and look at their eSIPs and look at the other ones around the community, and we should adopt a culture of forking eSIPs around and having deterministic naming, like versioning schemes, so that like we're all talking about the same thing and we can copy them all over the place, and it more or less operates like kind of like the old school days of mailing patches around to each. Like that's like we can't like GitHub is great, but we can't really just rely on this like one GitHub repo. And I say GitHub because like I'm not too confident that like a lot of people have all this stuff cloned and would support it otherwise. So
and also like I think it's better to have things distributed than not, because like just having the one repo has like those vulnerabilities, and yeah.
Yeah, so I can talk a bit about it too. Yeah, like I said in chat, like the point is that like Git is the decentralized thing here, and GitHub is not. If a certain team wants to pull in specific stuff on their GitHub, it should not matter because we're all using Git. So the rest of it is just like we obviously have to have some consensus. So pulling something in your own repo is consensus.
So to address the question of voting, we have no voting at the moment. I would suggest that like there's a sentiment within the open source community that essentially if you have to vote on anything, then you've essentially failed, because you're creating a community of basically of people who won and people who lost that huge debate where like it had to come to a vote and everybody staked basically their their credibility, if you will, within the community on an idea that was ultimately rejected.
And staking.
Like I think there's sort of like a underlying voting process, but it's very ill defined and therefore more manipulable and stuff. So like I don't know, like I don't think I really don't like the idea of having to vote to support things. But yeah, I don't know.
And you can even add staking or voting. Like when they and regardless of the context, I'm just speaking in general. Staking or voting too, and even POS systems. This is something that I find like a loophole. Is you have the ability to circumvent philosophical or technical correctness, or whatever you would think is like a universal principle. Because if you look at today's governments, some countries vote for some pretty crazy things.
I also touched on with other question, which is around the canonical client that he asks about Ethereum Classic and Ethereum project.
Yeah, so there is like again, like with what I was saying there earlier about how like the same reason why we should have multiple eSIPs. It's like there is there should be no canonical client. The word canonical client, those two words next to each other should be somewhat of an oxymoron. Like I said, like if there's a canonical client, then there's one group of people that you'd go to that would basically be able to completely change the network however they like. So like, the idea of a canonical client is insane, and there should never be one.
And Ethereum project and Ethereum Classic, those are GitHub orgs, not clients. And I would argue the canonical client is Classic Geth, and that's agnostic to where it's hosted. And if it's hosted in multiple places, that's even better.
Okay, so we've got 7 more minutes, and I do want to thank everybody for taking the time out to listen, but also to talk. I want to try to address a flurry of new questions we started getting around what I like about some of the questions. How can ETC Labs help foster a diverse ETC ecosystem? I think it kind of ties into this discussion. So, to Steph, to Zach, to team, how does an ETC Labs, what's the responsibility we have to create a diverse system? How do we help build that? In my view, it's the fact that we've also got the incubator, where because we're supporting so many different tech stacks and different products, it forces us to be diverse and looking for solutions by just what our team is able to create.
I can go a bit like sidetrack on that. Like the big goal for us is to build the tools and the resources for to build up the community. A lot of the work that we've done on GitHub and that kind of stuff already has hopefully helped lots of people on, like Christine, on how to organize stuff. We also have a good management so that we could test and VPNs for each one of the OSs. There's just lots of stuff there that we're trying to just like get the tooling up to a better standard in the whole community.
Got it. So building better help foster the ETC ecosystem, and it's making, by building these tools, you encourage diversity. Everybody
yeah, and obviously we've been like we had the ETH 2.0 call, and we talked with a lot of the startups and a lot of other people in the community. So we're definitely trying to just be the person that people come to figure out how to build stuff on ETC. Building the tools to allow it.
And also, you don't see. Also, no, we don't go like out of our place telling other people what to do and what's like the standard. We just post stuff, take it or leave it. You know, same thing with like the Eclipse or ESIP things. We're not attacking people who support this spec or that spec. So,
Yeah, considering the focus as being able to just dig in and build, a lot has come out in the last month. To further go on the point we mentioned on being a source for supporting the community, Yaz has a great question about any interest in supporting Mantis. The Mantis client additionally with bounties listed for it. So that's a great question, and it also brings up the fact that we're going to be laying out a series of bounties as well, and a series of grants for development. But right now we haven't fully articulated that. But if there's any input, we definitely welcome it from the community. So going on to the question from Yaz, is there support for Mantis? Would we be interested in bounty?
Yeah, so I have a couple questions there. Like, are they looking for people to maintain it, or they're just looking for funding, or what are they actually looking for? I know that they were gonna donate it to like the Linux Foundation or something. I thought.
So Yaz thinks that it supported. I mean, if outside of the business portion, is that something that we think we should support? Is that something that we need to keep alive?
Like isn't so the Ethereum Foundation is supporting it, so we also need to support it. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to look at. Just we don't have a lot of just scallop hanging around. Yeah. So I don't know. Can we send?
Like, I don't understand. You guys are like.
Is there a proposal?
You guys are.
So, yeah, it's I don't know.
It's a soft feel. Feeling it out would be interesting. There's one question I kind of want to focus on before we sign off. A very productive hour. Definitely want to do this again. We definitely need feedback on how to make it better. How often you guys would be interested in hearing, let's say, this kind of structure. So the question for the team is, what would help ETC grow? What would encourage core developers to build on ETC? So what are the last things we want to kind of think about that will increase more focus on building and less on this back and forth bickering around, small details? What do we need to do as a community together to encourage more developers to come forward?
Well, I think one just like initiative that we're working on is OpenRPC. That is like a baseline of tooling to help people interact with the blockchain. So I think that is like one thing that we're working very hard towards. That is going to enable a lot of the great modern tooling that you get to see other places, like having code generation and service discovery and great documentation tools and that kind of stuff through the Ethereum API. And that might translate well to other cryptocurrencies. So that's something that people should look forward to, is OpenRPC. at least for the, like bringing up the level of cooling, which like to move back to your question, like definitely help onboard. So we're trying to do that like technical.
Excellent.
Like that.
And look, we're going to be spending a lot more time interviewing more people, building things, doing more. This should be more about what we can do to build rather than talk about. Yes, you can't do that. You're too funny, man. So yes, we're definitely going to do this again. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time. If there's any follow-up, please do so in the general chat. And again, thank you, everybody, for taking the time for joining us. Have a round of applause for our guests, contributing both their time to take this call and then, of course, all the time they're doing to help build the better world. And yeah, anything you want to say before we get off us?
No, I think we're good. I was gonna mention something about growing ETC. There's this animosity about like foundations and ETC, but I would recommend, hey, if you're like a developer, this is like something for not even it's indirect here, but hey, if you're a developer, Jimmy John from some other place. Like there's this animosity about foundations, but ETC ecosystem kind of lacks in the like open like in the charitable contributions organizations. So if you want to get funding and you're having trouble, create a nonprofit for research and development, and start coding, and people would, and you'll probably attract funding that way too. Because there's other people that say funding's an issue, and that's just one suggestion to people out there is create an organization. You don't have really like a profit revenue model, start building, get donations.
Awesome. I mean, that's good. That's good sharing. But this is all about community. That's why we're doing. That's why we're having a call where we're at, inviting some people to listen. This is about being part of the community, building something all together. We're going to continue this more. Everyone, have a fantastic day, and keep on looking towards the grass always being greener, and the immutable fortress will stay unchanged. Everyone, have a fantastic day. Take care. Bye from UTC Labs.